here I go with my presentation. So tonight's presentation is on Prague's astronomical clock. And because people ask me to pronounce it, and I don't speak Czech, here goes. Pražský orloj. And that's about the best you're going to get out of me. Alrighty, so my name is Maddalena Romano. I've been a member of ASLI since 2020 when Bob Unger brought me in after I took his astronomy course. So let's talk a little bit about Prague's astronomical clock. First, let's talk about what an astronomical clock is. I'm fairly certain most people here are also members of AOS, which means they were there for the Antikythera mechanism presentation. So an astronomical clock is the grandchild of the Antikythera mechanism. But essentially, it's a clock that also displays astronomical information. So it's kind of like a mix between an astrolabe and a clock. It's all on the same screen. So you have astronomical information, such as the sun, the moon, sidereal time. Quick question. Everyone here knows what sidereal time is? I'm assuming it's an astronomical, no, star time. So the 24-hour clock that we usually go by every day, sidereal time is the rotation of the moon around in a day, and it takes 23 hours and 56 minutes. So it shaves 4 minutes off every day, which is why we have leap year, for those that weren't aware. So in short, all astrolabes were originally created hundreds and hundreds of years ago, which means all astrolabes represent a geocentric solar system. I'm assuming everybody here knows geocentric, but for those who don't want to raise their hand, it means Earth-centered, which means at the center of each astrolabe, and I'm going to try to get a better, I just wanted a better, all right here, if everyone can see me pointing, right there where the little pointer finger is, that is considered the position on the Earth where you are. And this one, since it was created by astronomer Giovanni Dondi dell'Orologio, which, by the way, means clock, of the clock, which is so funny. It's basically where you are at that moment. That's actually not at that moment, where you are based on where the clock is. So in Prague, you're standing in front of the Prague clock. If that clock moves somewhere, well, it doesn't mean much, but at the same time, it's still pretty. The sun is always represented right here by, if you can see the little movement, by a golden sphere. So this comes from the Antikythera mechanism because the sun was always represented by a golden sphere on the Antikythera mechanism. So it's a holdover. And next, the astronomical clock is located in the middle of Old Town in Prague. So it's a section of Prague, it's not all of Prague. And by the way, Old Town is where Charles University is and the Charles University Library. It's also high in tourists. So the astronomical clock is on the Old Town Hall. A little bit about Old Town Hall. It was originally established in 1338. And let me try again with this. Nope, not working. All right, so the building that you see made of yellow brick all the way on the side with a huge tower, that was the original building that was established in 1338. But then, as you can see, the buildings next to it, the white brick, the red brick, it started expanding into all the adjoining buildings. And then eventually in 1470, they decided, let's integrate all the houses together and we'll make a gigantic town hall, and then let's redecorate it in the Gothic style, which is what you're seeing right now. Now, the side that has the clock, and you can see the clock all the way on your left, that's considered the south side. That's the southern wing that has the tower with the astronomical clock. The eastern wing is not pictured here and no longer exists. It was actually destroyed during the Prague uprising on May 8th of 1945. That's when Prague was protesting the Nazi occupation, and the Nazis decided to use anti-aircraft guns to just completely destroy Prague. It did destroy the eastern wing, which was not rebuilt. It did destroy the clock, but that was rebuilt. Let's move on. Okay. All right, now I can't seem to advance the slide, and I do not know why. There it is, lost it. Haha. Okay, so let's talk about the clock, or technically the astrolabe. So that's the thing that's all the way up top. It was actually brought from Italy by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV. Now, if you don't know who Charles IV is, just go to Prague, because everything is named after Charles IV. The Charles Bridge, Charles University, the Charles Library, everything is named after Charles IV. Also, I have to grab my phone because you might like this part. All right. Charles IV had a son who was also Holy Roman Emperor, because apparently that's how you became Holy Roman Emperor, just became the son of the former one. And his name was, anyone want to guess? John, don't guess, because I know you know, because I told you. Okay, his name was Wenceslas. Has anyone ever heard of that name before? Yes, good King Wenceslas. Very good. So, if it's not familiar to you, Wenceslas was the Holy Roman Emperor after Charles IV was his dad. He was considered one of the worst and weakest and ineffectual emperors, but he was also considered, depending on the legend, unbelievably charitable. And the church did make him a saint. So it is Saint Wenceslas. Now, I'm going to look this up because some of you may be thinking, I don't know who Wenceslas is, and I've never heard of this Christmas song. Well, you're in for a treat, because number one, you do know it because they play it every year. You just don't know the words. Ready? I'm going to sing it for you. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel, when a poor man came inside, throwing winter fuel. Okay, you've all heard the melody, you just didn't know the words till now. So look it up, have fun with the song. You'll never get it out of your head now that I just sang it for you. So let's move on. In 1410, Miklaus of Caden installed this clock on the Old Town clock. It is actually the third oldest in the world, but it's the oldest one still operating. And guess what? It still has 2/3 of its original parts, which is pretty cool. It displays 4 different types of time: Babylonian time, German time, sidereal time, again, that's star time, the moon phases, the zodiac, and they added Old Bohemian time, also called Old Czech time or Italian time, in 1957. I'll get more into that in a little bit. On its 605th birthday, that was in 2010, Google actually featured it as a Google Doodle, which is why I included it at the bottom of the screen. And it was almost sold for scrap in between mid 1700s all the way up until about 1861, because Prague was having a really hard time economically. Luckily, it did turn around right there around 1861, and they decided to not only keep it, but renovate it in 1865. We'll learn more about 1865 in a minute. But for anybody who likes to take road trips in order to see the stars, there is a replica of this clock in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And let's all see it, because I think I'm still sharing my screen. Let's look at my screen. Come on. Very quickly, click. Oh, pain in the butt. I'm just trying to switch to my screen. Oh, it is. Oh, okay. All the way to the side. Up, 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 click. Come on, click. Click. Wow. Oh, dang it. It's the pointer. There we go. National Czech and Slovak Museum and Library. So if you're ever out there for, I don't know, in a click, check it out. You see the astronomical clock. All right, now back to my presentation. They did build a tower, and they have a like library tower. I'm going to say yes, because I actually couldn't find anything except a picture to a GoFundMe site. I know it exists, and they show that it exists, but that's all I have, which is weird because I would have thought they would have put a little bit more on there. No, I'm just trying to switch back. Okay. And down. Right. So let's move on. And let's talk about all of the statues that are on and in this astronomical clock. So the first one, the statues of the apostles. These wooden statues were first added in somewhere between 1787 and 1791. I'm assuming that's how long it took to carve them. But then the statue, again, they were just statues. They were converted to apostles in 1865. So basically, after the economy fell, rebounded, they decided to upgrade the clock, and they converted the statues to apostles. I guess they just got repainted. Now, well, actually more than just repainted, if you see on the screen, you can see there's a mechanism. Now these statues actually go out of these two windows and process around the clock. It's called the procession of the apostles. And while they do this, there is a golden rooster that crows and a skeleton representing death that tolls a bell, get it, for whom the bell tolls, and then three other statues that say, no, 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 we don't want to die, and move their hands and head. So it's kind of funny, I guess. It's a show that everyone gets to see once every hour. And at the end, the rooster crows and the skeleton turns its hourglass over. So it actually, does two things. I think I got, oh, yes. These statues that you're seeing here are not the original statues because the Prague City Museum removed the originals, put them in the Prague Museum, and replaced them with replicas in order to preserve them. They also took the original calendar before it was renovated and what have you, and that's also in the Prague Museum. So now there's other statues. These are ones that are on either side of the astronomical clock. They're called the allegories. So there's four statues. I am looking this way. I guess I should look in here so you guys can see me. It's four statues. The one all the way on the left holding the mirror is called Vanity. Okay. The one right next to it is a miser. Miser represents greed. Then next to it is a skeleton representing death. The one that strikes the time. Well, not really strikes the time. He rings the bell. And then, okay, not very PC, but there's a Turk representing lust. So take from it what you will. Sorry, I didn't carve the statue. There's more statues, because right underneath it, next to the calendar, we have the virtues. So we have a philosopher, Archangel Michael, pointing at the tippy top of the calendar. The tippy top of the calendar, by the way, always marks the current day. The dial at the top rotates. More on that a little bit. On the other side, on the right, you have an astronomer, and all the way to the very far right, you have a chronicler. Unlike the statues of the Turk and death and vanity and greed, which move, these are not animated. However, every 3 or 4 years, statues, both sets of statues that are outside facing the elements are removed. They're put some sort of wax or preservative on them and then returned onto there. Also, ever since 1976, they put up bird netting so that, the pigeons don't poop on it. So you're never going to be able to just see it. You're going to be able to see it through netting. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the calendar. So the zodiac signs, and for those who are looking at this image, the very center is the crest of the old town of Prague. So you see the castle, that's the crest of the old town of Prague. Right around the crest of the old town of Prague are the zodiac symbols. The next set of medallions are just allegories for the months of the year. So the things that you would be doing during the months of the year, like reaping and sowing or crying or, you know, just general malaise. I don't know. I can't see them all. But the point comes a little bit later. You get to see them a little bit more close up. Like I said, the dial at the very top was added 15 years later in 1870. Now that dial lists every single day of every single month and a feast day for a saint for every single day. So it rotates at the very top so that that little pointer that you see at the very, very top, I'm not sure how apparent it is on the screens at home, but at the very top, it points to the day that it is. And you can also see if you're on the cusp of a zodiac sign or what month you might be in. Again, you'd probably have to need a zoom lens to really be able to see it, even if you're there on purpose. I think, oh, right, Joseph Mans. Remember that name because Joseph Mans was originally considered, because of some chronicler writing the story incorrectly, that he created the astronomical clock. He did not. He was a painter and he painted the calendar. For the longest time, people thought it was Joseph Mans. It is not. It is Miklaus. So let's move on. Let's talk about what you'd see if you went there. You can actually have a look at the tower. You climb all the way to the top. You can look at the chapel. There's a lot of staterooms that are still used for meetings, and you can see the underground itself. Now, you can climb all the stairs for free, but if you're like me with bad knees and you need the elevator, it has a fee. That, by the way, is the elevator, and that is the most awesome looking thing I have seen. I'm sorry, that's a cool looking elevator. Now, the mechanics of the clock itself are not viewable for the public. And that, you'll see in a couple of slides, is actually what makes the clock more mysterious and lends itself to the idea of there's a curse. Talk more about that in a minute. The medieval underground. Now that's cool. That's a labyrinth of chambers and tunnels that also include the old prison. And this prison is available, but you have to book a tour in order to go and see it. So you can see it, but again, booking a tour means you've got to pay for it. Interesting thing though, remember when I showed you the Walk of the Apostles and you saw two little blue windows? If you don't remember, let's go back and have a look. See, oh, there goes. See the blue windows behind the apostles? Okay. Before this was the Walk of the Apostles, these were two jail cells. Now, why would you have jail cells at the top of the tower or above the clock and jail cells in the underground? Well, the underground were for the peons like all of us, but the aristocrats got the jail cells in the sky. So even then, the 1% had it better than the rest of us. I'm just saying. Now, let's move on back to, I believe, yeah, we've talked about this. I would really thought that would have gotten a chuckle. I mean, come on. Prison cells in the sky. I honestly, too tough of a crowd. All righty. Okay. Too highbrow. So let's talk a little bit about what's on the face of the clock. No, I did not go in order from 1 to 13 because I didn't. Fight me. The sun and the moon are 10 and 11. They're right here. Here's a sun medallion. Actually, for this, I might go the distance and get myself, come on, spotlight and click. There we go. There's the sun. And here's the moon. So the moon itself is really interesting. The moon has a mechanism that turns so that right now they're showing a new moon, but you can actually see it wax and wane. So it turns and turns and turns so you can actually see a full moon or a waning moon or a half moon, etc., which I think is kind of cool. I've seen other pictures where it's not black. So and we'll discuss how some of the numbers look in a little bit. You can actually see, and if you look right here, nighttime is right here. You see all this darkness? It's actually a very dark blue. So that indicates nighttime. This indicates daybreak. No. Yes, daybreak. This over here indicates, let me move up right here. This is sunrise. And this is daytime. So by daybreak, I mean twilight. Now, so I should have just said twilight. And on the other side, they have the same thing. They have sunset and twilight and et cetera, on the other side as well. Now, what you're also seeing, and this is where it gets a little confusing. So one up here, where you see the Roman numerals, this is modern time, also called German time. So it's represented as two sets of Roman numerals, 1 to 12. We also have by current time, I mean you have the hand here. Go to the hand. And the hand is actually representing current time that it is. So wherever the hand moves, it'll show you what it is. Now you might be wondering, why does this clock say that it's 4 o'clock in German time, but 2100 in 2100, and that is called the Schwabacher numerals, which is ancient Czech time or old Bohemian time. We'll get to that. I even have a video for that, so I don't have to do the talk. Moving on, we also have, again, the Schwabacher numerals are, again, right here. So they're around the entire edge of the clock. And one thing I do want to point out, because you might be able to see it, 4s and 7s look really funky. I think I cut off the 7, but you might be able to see the 4. That is 4. You might not have gotten it. I'm just pointing it out. The 7s also look interesting, but unfortunately on this one, I chopped it off. You'll be able to see it in the video. Let's see, the zodiac ring is right here. And I'm having a hell of, either I forgot what Libra is, or they left it out. Is Libra up there, like the little, like, this one, is that Libra? I don't remember. Okay, so basically right here, I think this, like, it looks like somebody's skin with a lipoma on it that the dermatologist is supposed to remove. I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming that might be it. Otherwise, my sign is not on there for some reason. Then we also have sidereal time. Now, sidereal time is right. This is a little difficult. Right here. Sidereal time is indicated by this star. So the star will take the route entirely around the entire clock and will tell you the start time. Again, every single day, it becomes 4 minutes behind the day previous. So it will always be a bit behind, except on a few key days. Then you have Babylonian time, which is, come on, right here. All right, so why are some of these things a little bit weird? Babylonian time only measured 12 hours during the day. It did not measure time at night. I don't know why. I would think you'd want to know when day started. But old Czech time is also interesting. You may notice that 24 is down here. That should technically be midnight. Old Czech time's day ended at sunset, and the day restarted at sunset. So it basically told you how many more hours of daylight you had versus when midnight was coming back around. Now, in order to make my life a little bit easier and to allow me to sit down, come on, pop up. Oh, do I? No, I think I closed it just by moving off, and why can't I see it? Oh, okay, I'm gonna close out of it now. And then I'm gonna go over here and share my screen, and we're gonna go back and watch a video. Alrighty, here we go.
that this video will not be about history or the legends of the clock. We'll make another video about that soon. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. But let's start. So first, what is the astronomical clock? Astronomical clock is this beautiful mechanism that you see here on the tower of the old town hall. It's none of those things next to it or on top of the tower, but these two beautiful dials. Which dial would you like us to start with? Click on the screen to pick one. Just kidding. YouTube doesn't have a feature like that yet. Let's start with the upper dial. The upper dial, also known as the astrolabe or the sphere, is showing us, to put it simple, two things: the time and the movement of the heavenly bodies through the sky. So if you want to know what the time is, you have to look for a golden hand. Now the golden hand is pointing at the number 18. But if I look at my watch, I see that it's actually 10. So why is it showing us the number 18? Is because this time we call the old Czech time, and it's a time that we used 500 years ago, and we counted time back then completely different. When the golden hand goes to number 24, it's not midnight like we are used to it today, but it's actually the time of sunset. So that's why it's showing us 18, and that's why also some of those numbers that you see there are hard to read, because these numerals are called Gothic time. The next time we will explain is called the Old German time. So here you can see the golden hand points at one more number. It's a Roman numeral, and this one actually shows us 10, which means it's showing us the correct time, because right now it's 10 o'clock. You might know this time a little bit better. It goes from 1 to 12 a.m. to 1 to 12 p.m. The only problem with this time is that in summer it's 1 hour off because of the daylight savings, so it only shows us correct time for half a year. Then, if you look at the small black numbers right below that, that's another time. We call this the time of Babylon. And it's actually pretty cool, because this is the only astronomical clock in the world that successfully shows us correctly this time. It's not this time the golden hand, though, you have to look at to see what the hour of Babylon is. You have to look for the golden sun, which is just below the hand. You see the sun is between two golden lines, so that's actually how you tell what hour of Babylon we are right now in. This one is a little bit more complicated to understand, because in the time of Babylon they only counted time throughout the day, so it only had 12 hours, and of course the problem with that was that as the time of day was changing throughout the year, the hour of Babylon was longer or shorter based on that. So you can actually see it displayed here by how these golden lines go further away from each other, or they're closer, to symbolize the shorter, longer time, because the sun actually goes up and down on the hand. The last time we will talk about is called the star time, also the sidereal. Sorry for my pronunciation. I'm Czech in the end. Just so you get a general idea, it is based off the seemingly stable stars in the sky. It also has 24 hours, but every day you lose about 4 minutes because of the movement of the Earth around the Sun. But it's a little bit more complicated, so make sure to check out the link in the description. Okay, now for the other part that the sphere is showing us, and that is the movement of the heavenly bodies in the sky. If you look in the center of the clock, you can see there planet Earth. Where the clock is positioned, that's Prague. And compared to where you are standing right now, you can see where in the sky is the sun, where is the moon. The moon is this little cute ball, which actually has a silver and black color, and it has its own mechanism inside that spins and changes the color of the moon and shows you all the phases of the moon as well. Pretty cool, right? Now you can also see there this black dial with strange symbols. If you are into astrology, I'm sure you immediately know what those are. These are the zodiacs. And what is pretty cool is that the sun, you can see now, is in the symbol of Sagittarius. So it actually shows us which zodiac we are right now in. And well, that's where the name, the astronomical clock, comes from. That's for the upper part and the upper dial. Now let's go explain the bottom dial. The bottom dial is much more easy to understand. It's basically a big round calendar. On the outside of the calendar you can see these small little areas. These are the different days of the year. If you want to know what day we are right now in, look where this little golden arrow is pointing at. That's it. Below the days of the year you can see these big round pictures. They are basically different months of the year, but explained in a picture so you can see what people were doing during the different months. Below the months you can see the zodiacs again, and finally all the way in the center you can see this picture of the beautiful golden city, and that's the symbol of Prague, of course, because in the end the clock is located on the town hall of the old town, which was the most important building in this city back then. Well, that's it. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hopefully you found the explanation about how the clock works helpful. If you liked it, give us a like, and we'll see you in our next video.
All right, let me just go back. Okay. Minimize. All right. Also, just because it's on the clock, but for some reason not indicated here, this line out here, all the way at the edge, symbolizes the Tropic of Capricorn. This line, oh, hang on. Let me make sure that annotates on so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so this line right here on the edge, that's the Tropic of Capricorn. That's the one lower than us. This line right here, that's the equator. And this line right here, which I believe 12 is pointing to, which is why I don't understand why it didn't point to the others, is the Tropic of Cancer, which is the one closer to us. That's the 23rd parallel on either side of the, sorry, 23rd and a half parallel on either side of the equator. So let me go back so I can advance. Can't advance when this thing is on. That's annoying. Advance. So we've seen the video. Let's talk a little bit about the clock mechanics. I'm just going to go ahead and say that I skimmed through this because I ran out of time because I was doing this on my day off. And the reason why is because there's an enormous amount of stuff on the horloge.eu site about the mechanics and about the actual clock. So I have a link to it at the bottom so we can look more at that. But in short, I've mentioned this before, but the clock has 2/3 of its original mechanism. I will say that in 2018, they replaced the clock mechanism from 1865 with a restored version of a clock mechanism from 1948. More on that later. Now, this clock mechanism that you're seeing on the screen, it's just 3 different views. 2 are drawings and 1 is a photograph from turn of the century, I think. Actually controls the 3 dial pointers. So the sidereal time, the golden hand, sidereal time, golden hand, and the sun and moon. And that main mechanism also then controls the chiming, the apostles, the calendar below it. So one main mechanism controls the 3 dials that you see, 3 big wheels with teeth all the way at the right. And then those in turn activate other controls. And these activate in intervals and then relock themselves after the intervals are over. So for example, when it's time for the procession of the apostles, it activates, the rooster crows, the skeleton, and all the other marionettes move, and etc. And once that's over, it relocks itself. Now, it is attached to a chronometer. And if you want to read more about it, it is, come on, right here. And that's how the clock itself is timed. I do not want to read this out loud, so I linked it in the presentation, and anybody that wants it, I will put it up on the asleygroups.io site. Yes? Great, so I'll do that. Let me minimize so that we can continue. So yeah, I don't mean to skip through this, it's just that it's a lot. And we're already 15 minutes behind, I've been talking for a while, so I'm just going to skip through this part for a second and move on to the renovation. There's some cool stuff in the renovation. Now, it took me some time to gather all these dates because some of the dates were either wonky or blended into each other. So here goes. Remember, the clock itself was constructed in 1410. They originally thought it was constructed in 1490. In 1490, that's when Jan Manus painted the calendar below it, which is why the confusion. So in 1490, they added the calendar dial and the Gothic figurines. Because remember, they remodeled it in 1470 to have a more Gothic facade. Somewhere between 1552 and 1572, they repaired the clock and all of the allegories. Remember, allegories, death, vanity, greed, lust. So those are the ones right next to the astrolabe. From 1629 to 1659. Wow, this thing broke down a lot, right? Constant renovations. Wait till you see how much they paid in 2018. Right there. So they added the moving wooden figurines. So they mechanized the marionettes, they mechanized the allegories on the sides, and they mechanized the apostles. That's why they added that wheel that you see. Also, well, I'll get to it in a second. In 1787, they added the wood statues. So the wood statues were eventually going to become the apostles. First, they were just wood statues. Oh, okay. In 1865, they converted those wood statues into the apostles, and then they repainted the calendar because it needed renovating. In 1945, remember, May 8th, 1945, on the 7th, and especially on the 8th, the Nazis bombed the hell out of Prague because Prague was uprising against the Nazi occupation. And it did destroy a lot of the town hall, also destroyed a lot of other things. The picture all the way in the top right is what the horloge looked like immediately after the bombing. So this picture, right here, let me go right here just to make sure. I'm assuming everyone can see this, but this is where it should be. Oh, it did not do what I wanted to do. This is where the astrolabe should be, and this is where it ended up. So it was destroyed. This is the southern facade, which was repaired. The eastern facade was not repaired. And I just added these others because here you have some nice workmen, removing the calendar for renovation. And here you have this dude in a tarp cleaning the, I'm sorry, but he's literally wrapped up in a tarp and he's pointing downward. I'm like, dude, I mean, talk about OSHA violation. I just loved it. I know, I couldn't deal. I just had to include it. There's a lot of great older photographs. And if you notice in the picture at the top right of the destroyed clock, there are no statues were also obliterated, etc. So it was a mess. In 2005, I'm sorry, this clock was repaired 3 years later, but it was closed down for those 3 years. But in 2005, they restored the calendar ring. And then I said 1976, sorry, in 2005, they added the pigeon netting because, again, poop on the clock. In 2018, they replaced those 1860s mechanisms with with a restored 1948 clock mechanism. And they also decided to repaint the calendar. Let me give you some numbers. I do not know how Czech money works, so I'm just going to say it's euros. Okay, it's not. It's in Czech money, and I just don't know how it works. But it was 9 million euros or 9 million Czech dollars. I don't know how it works. Apologies. 7 million was to replace the mechanism. 2 million was to repaint the calendar. Right. So it was no small potatoes, and 2018 wasn't that long ago. So you have an idea of how much, you can have an idea here of how much it cost. Again, let me turn this off. And let's move on. Come on, shut it off.
The second clock mechanism, like obviously,
Mhm.
it was used as a backup or was put in place while the 1860 mechanism was being repaired.
No, they removed it and they put it back in. So the clock wasn't open to visitors, tower wasn't open to visitors. They just removed it and they put in the 1948 mechanism. I'm assuming that they had a workshop to test it in. But my understanding is that what they probably did was they had the, as you can see from the orloj.eu, for those that are interested, the link is at the end. You could see some of the blueprints and sketches and drawings. As long as there was, this was not the only astronomical clock ever built. So they had other mechanisms. It's just people sold them off for scraps, or they were no longer functioning because, again, it costs a lot of money to keep these up to date. 9 million is nothing. I don't know how much a euro is compared to American dollars, but still a lot. They're pretty. It's a pretty close conversion, if I understand it correctly. So they did have something that they could use and that they were reasonably confident would work the same way because of the blueprint that they were comparing it to. So yes, they had something, and yes, they had to have tested it before they reopened it to the public.
The 1948 conversion was never used.
I do not know the answer to that. The 1948 version was restored, so it was being used somewhere else. And then it was out of commission for a while. I'm assuming they just refurbished a very similar engine and then replaced the one from the 1860s because it basically had it. Again, I'm making an assumption, but that's what I get from a restored mechanism, that they refurbished it. Yeah, John?
9 million Czech dollars,
Mhm.
around 405,000.
Oh,
So it's
wow. Okay. No, it sounds better when it's like 9 million. Okay, so 405 US dollars. All right, so it's not nothing, but it's a couple of years of paychecks. Anyway, in 2008, they replaced the mechanism and they repainted that calendar that you see someone taking down right there. Let's talk about this calendar. All right. Huge controversy in 2022. So in 2018, they repainted the calendar. It took them 4 years to observe that the the painter decided to radically alter all of the medallions in the calendar. He changed the appearance, the age, the gender, the skin tone. He changed around everything. It wasn't like there were bad paintings, and it wasn't like it didn't give the same feel or sentiment, but it didn't look at all like the original paintings from Jan Manis. So, or sorry, Jan? I don't know. Okay, I'm assuming it might be Jan. So they asked the guy, he didn't say anything, but they believe that the artist painted in all of his friends as a joke for 2 million Czech dollars. A $2 million joke that had to be repainted 4 years later to go back to the original. Sorry, I just thought it was fun. I want to know how they felt after they realized it 4 years later. Like 4 years, wow. That's not good quality control. Yes, John?
That's why you only pay contractors 1/3.
Yes, bad quality control. Yes, exactly. You only pay 1/3 up front, 1/3 midway, And you do a quality control. How do you miss this? All right, next, let's talk about the myths and the curses. All right, I'm going to talk about 4 of them. Let's start with the skeleton. So the skeleton itself, I'm calling it the skeleton. It's not what it's called. But I couldn't fit all of the description on the slide, so I made names for them. So the first myth I'm going to talk about is called the skeleton. There was a myth that if the clock ever stopped for an extended period of time, then skeleton would bow its head, which is weird because it looks like it's bowing its head in this picture. So I don't quite get how they, I mean, does it have to like nearly fall off? But my point is, and you can see the netting quite clearly through here. It would bow its head and the Czech people would have bad luck until clock was restarted. Guess how you had to restart this clock? Okay, so you had to have a boy born on New Year's Eve run from the Tick Church all the way to Old Town Hall by the time, and he had to be able to do it starting at the stroke of midnight, and he had to make it there before the last stroke of the bell. If he did, great, the Czech people were going to have a good time. If not, woe be unto the Czech people. Now, put a link here because I wanted to know how far away this was, so I looked it up on Google. Let's see how far away it is. Oh, dang it. This is not fun. So here. Alrighty. So let's close this, make it easier. So right here, right here, where you see it says Zegar Astronomical Prague, that's the astronomical clock. And over here, that is the Church of Our Lady before Tin, or Tin Church. Let's just close that up. And the length is about 150 meters. However, all right, I don't know if you can see my arrow. The one people here can see I don't know if you can see it on over Zoom. That's actually also an entrance. And this, I don't see why you would go by the street. This is a square. It's all concrete. So you could actually run from here to here. It's 150 meters, which is roughly 450 feet. So you had to run 450 feet in about 12 seconds. I'm assuming bells toll every second. So in 12 seconds, you had to run 450 feet. So is it doable? Maybe. 500 feet isn't that far away. I don't know, but that's the length. And if anybody wants to do this, go to Prague, time yourself. I'd like to see if it could be done in 12 seconds. All right, now let's. Oh, I'm sure they attempt it every single time. Because again, that's the legend. A boy had to run that far. I'm sure girls do it too. They might do it faster. Who knows? But the point is, yes, I absolutely think that people try this whenever it's chiming. Absolutely. Let's minimize.
So it shouldn't do it.
It should be, but again, it depends on how fast people do and don't run. And depends on the age. I know I used to be able to outrun my brother, but I'm 5'6" and now he's 6'5", so I can still outrun my brother. But the point is that I think it depends on stamina, age, whether or not your knees are good. So I'm thinking yes. Oh wait, we're not done yet. Why are we here? We're not done. Let's go back and talk about some more myths. All right, the knight. I'm not sure if others have heard of this. I know I've heard of this one. There once was an aristocrat, a knight, who was imprisoned in one of those high prison cells for the aristocrats, the ones with the blue windows where the apostles come out. And he saw a pharaoh fly into the mouth of the skeleton during the chiming of the top of the hour. And it got trapped in there because the skeleton closed its mouth. So it had to wait a whole hour until the top of the next hour when it reopened its mouth to fly out. Now the knight saw the sparrow fly out of the mouth and saw this as a good omen. This is wonderful. The sparrow was free. I'm going to be freed now too. Turns out the knight actually was pardoned. By the way, story is bunk, but in the story, the knight was pardoned. So you have one story where the skeleton is all doom and gloom and woe is me, and the other one where he's all light and hope. So take from it what you will. The blinding. Now this is a little more, the next two are sort of like interchanged or more or less overlapping. It's said, and this again, total bunk. Remember, Nikolaus was the one that actually designed the clock. He was the architect. But for some reason, people thought the painter did it. That was Jan Manas. And people believe, because some chronicler wrote it down wrong when it was undergoing renovations. And he said that after the clock was completed, the city councilors loved it so much that they didn't want the architect to create another one in any other city, so they blinded him. All right, let's move into the suicide. So this same guy, who is actually not the guy that created the clock in the first place, but this same guy, Master Manus, decided, I'll show them. So he put a curse on the clock. And he says, anyone who touches this clock will be cursed forever, blah, 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 and threw himself into the mechanisms and killed himself. Okay, none of this actually happened. But again, the curse is that anybody that tries to fix the clock or go in and do anything will be cursed themselves. So lots of curses. The fact that we, as the public, are not allowed into the mechanical room to see how it works only makes the curse seem like, oh, there is a curse. That's why we're not allowed to touch the mechanism because the guy killed himself. All right, it's not true, but it is fun to think of it that way. Like if this was on Netflix, they absolutely would go through every single one of these as an episode. So that is my very last one. I'll take any additional questions there are. And for anybody that really wants to learn about the clock, you can go to horloge.eu down here and learn as much as you'd like. That was one, this is the main site of the all the pages, not the pages that I showed you, but remember when I talked about the timing mechanism? It's that site. It is a very poorly designed page, but it's got tons of information. Does anyone have any more questions for me?